Welcome to AI Snacks with Romy and Robbie. I'm Anastassia, an AI professor, the technologist, and the creator behind Romy and Robbie's AI series. My podcast translates AI and robotic technologies from difficult to easy to understand, and it's all for AI muggles, not wizards. Today's episode is really special because we are going to talk about humanoid robots. Where they're coming from, where are they implemented, how are they designed, and what type of machine learning, AI, and robotic technologies are utilized to build those smart machines. And I am bringing a very smart guest, and this is Jeff Burnstein. He is the president of the Association for Advancing Automation. This is a prominent organization representing over 1,000 global companies involved in robotics, machine vision, motion control, motors, and related technologies. Jeff has fantastic knowledge and experience in the robotic and automation industry, where he spent over 30 years of his career. He serves on the executive board of the International Federation of Robotics, or IFR. And this is all about relationship to automation and robotics leaders in countries such as China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Mexico. And Jeff's contribution to the field of automation and robotics has been acknowledged and celebrated. In 2023, he received a so-called Engelberger Award for leadership. And this prize is actually equal to the Nobel Prize for Robotics. And now it's time to open my studio and welcome Jeff. And here we have Jeff in my studio, Jeff Burnstein, president of the Association for Advancing Automation. Jeff, welcome to my show. Yeah, I'm really thrilled to have you. And I know that next week there's a huge event in the United States dedicated to humanoid robots. And I'm quite curious, could you maybe introduce us to this technology and when it's all started?
Yeah. Well, humanoids have fascinated people for a long time. People think of the Jetsons and a robot that would be working in our homes and doing things that, frankly, we don't want to do, cooking, cleaning, and other tasks. And so there's been development and research labs in Japan since the 60s. And, there have been initial mobile robots that were humanoids, like Honda had one, and Toyota and other companies have been working on this for a long time. Very complicated technology to perfect. And so we're now at a point where we are seeing what appear to be robots that are useful and that can be applied in industry and warehouses. And so we'll see. We'll see how quickly this develops.
And could we say that at the beginning of AI and robotics, researchers and developers underestimated the complexity? So to my knowledge, humanoid robots were kind of, prevalent. That was like the first idea to introduce machine learning technologies. But now we are seeing manufacturing spaces equipped with smart machines, but not robot servants or robot helpers. So what is your view on this?
Well, it's an evolution. So the first industrial robots were introduced in 1961. So you think about how far that technology has come.
Yeah.
And the technology today is much more useful and easier to use and less costly, and all the things that, we expected would happen have finally happened with industrial robots. And then along came collaborative robots that could work side by side with people without being beyond a fence. And so we've made great progress there. And then there were mobile robots that moved around a mobile base, moving products from here to there, working around people. And that was a relatively rapid development. They went from having to follow a line, an automatic guided vehicle that followed a line around, to be able to navigate autonomously. So these things take time, and we're still perfecting humanoid robots. It has been slow, but look at what's happened. the enabling technologies like artificial intelligence, of course, machine vision, and mobility have all come together to put us in a position where it's very possible to have effective humanoid robots in the near future. And some are working today.
If we kind of, pause on these technologies, obviously AI has been around for many, many decades. And only in the past 15 to 20 years, we see like a huge explosion of machine learning and AI in all kind of industries. In terms of robotics, what are the most important technologies powering those machines? Obviously, you mentioned computer vision. So what else?
Well, I think all the motion, the motors that are involved. I think the battery life is going to be critical to
Yeah.
humanoid robots. I think the safety features are going to be critical, and of course, the artificial intelligence, like you mentioned, that's going to be very important. We can now talk to the robot and not just code everything. So this ability to communicate, the ability for the robot to see and move efficiently, I think is going to really change the way these robots enter our lives.
And today, those machines still lack human level understanding, and they don't reason same way as many non-human animals and humans do. So, what are the next steps in your eyes? So, I was talking to someone who is a researcher in AI and robotics, and he said, "Look, of course we can improve and improve, but we don't want this next generation of Roomba to out of sudden clean the cat instead of the floor." And this thing probably does not have a notion of what a cat is or a pet is and how it's loved. So how do you think about this frontier moving into reasoning when it comes to robotic? Is it a topic at all, or are we just kind of improving, piling more and more data, better algorithms? What is going on there?
Yeah, I think some people are working on the whole emotional connection between people and machines. And look, for people like me, this is it's difficult to see me having a relationship with my machine. Okay, but I think they started in elder care of taking people who have been isolated and they like the robot, so they have a robot pet and they
Yeah.
interact with the robot. And can we get to a point where we really see them as more than just machines, to see them as helpers and friends and part of our family? Well, I mean, it's possible. We're making great progress in putting emotions and the ability to react in the machine. But at the end of the day, for me, it's still a machine. And
Yeah.
I think for most people, it is that now. It's not Bicentennial Man and Robin Williams. I don't think we're there, and I don't know if we want to get there. I mean, each person has maybe a different opinion. I don't know that I want to get there.
So me neither, but when we look around the globe, probably there are some geographies which have very different I don't know, opinion or culture around machines. And I know that your work bring you together with leaders in automation and robotics across the globe. Could
Yeah.
you talk about geographical differences, how people perceive those machines and how those machines are getting developed?
Well, I can tell you about cultural differences in robotics around the world. The technology was invented in the United States, and really there was a lot of resistance, particularly labor unions were worried, and people were uncomfortable, and Hollywood, often presents robots as scary and the Terminator and something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
The popular culture in Japan was very different. They had characters like Astro Boy and others that were well received by the public. They were friendly, they weren't scary. And so robotics caught on more quickly in Japan than it did in the United States, in part because of that. There wasn't some feeling right out of the gate that robots are something to be afraid of. This isn't Dr. Frankenstein. So this is these cultural differences are going to be experienced around the world. That's not a surprise.
And do you see these differences in terms of how humanoid robots are get accepted and adopted in the societies, or are you kind of, generalizing across the
I'm
whole field of
generalizing.
robotics?
I'm generalizing, but in France, I was there. There's a company called Enchanted Tools that has a robot, and they were very um, certain that the robot needed to have eyes and emotions because the French would want that. And
Interesting.
and that the character of the robot was important. They were going to make a film about the robot, and that this is how they were going to connect with people, and it wouldn't be scary. And hospitals, I think, were their first target market. So yeah, I think that's true. In the U.S., we've had robots that, you know, Baxter that came out. It was a two-armed robot. It was not a humanoid, but it had eyes and it had reactions, and some of the humanoids have it, some don't. So it's going to be a question. Each company is going to have to decide what they think is best, how people are going to react to it, what the actual face looks like, and we'll see.
And reading human emotions to respond to how the eyes look, what is the face doing. So this is difficult. It's just simply difficult because even humans don't read quite right other humans' emotions. So how is this technology evolving, and what is happening there, Jeff? And who is the pioneer and who is the best follower?
Well, I don't know who the best is, but I mean, there are companies. I think there's a company out of Europe, Sophia, the robot that,
Yeah. This is
you
hands-on
know,
robotics, right? So
yes,
I
yes.
think they are Hong Kong even. I
Oh, Hong
think
Kong,
they are,
maybe.
yes.
Yeah. So, and I haven't seen that robot in person. I've only seen videos. And
I am I am interviewing Sophia occasionally on stage because I'm a woman in AI, and some investment bankers love inviting me to their conferences so that I can interview the script.
yeah,
It's a
so you
chatbot.
know more about Sophia than I do, but from the videos I've seen, it's really interesting the way they try to have that robot interact with people.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
some of the robots they make flippant remarks like a person might, and so again, is this going to be something that we're going to spend a lot of time working on to make the robot more like a human, or what I think is more likely is we're
yeah.
going to work on how to make the machine effective to do what we want it to do. That's what industry wants. They don't
Yes.
care about all the rest. Can it do what I want quickly, efficiently, repeatably, and produce the ROI I need? That's
Yeah.
what I want. I don't need a friend.
Let's talk about it because so this is something really important. Obviously, Sophia received, I think, citizenship of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So great for hands-on robotics, but I mean the adaptability and scale of those machines. This is a huge issue. What needs to happen to get those machines to, I don't know, 50% of the American households, and for what?
Oh my God. It, but 0.5% of an American household would be something right now. I mean, look, what are you going to have it do? You're going to have it do multiple things. Okay. Right now, we have one robot in our homes, maybe a vacuum cleaner that really doesn't go upstairs. So if you want to have an upstairs, you need two. So now you're talking about a robot that's going to walk up steps. It has a battery that's going to carry things around people and animals. And you're going to have to maintain it. And if the power goes out and it falls, it's going to hurt someone. We're a long way, in my opinion, from having a safe robot in our homes of that size, the size of a human. And then it's going to be able to do every task that we want: cook, clean, wash. I mean, could it just do one task to start? Could it just
Yeah.
cook? Okay. Could it shop and cook? I think there's so many obstacles right now. But again, the advances in these technologies are going to make it conceivable that it's going to be quicker than I think. But most of the people I talk to don't think that's going to be quick in our home.
Yeah. And what is the case for all those robotic companies building, designing humanoid robots? What is their vision? How do they want to succeed?
Well, I think they're looking for use cases in industry that will allow companies to deal with labor shortages and to do things do tasks that people don't want to do. It's hard to hire people to do dull, dirty, dangerous jobs over and over all day. Pick this box up, walk it there, and go do it again 1,000 times. People don't want to do that. So they'll work and then they'll say, you know what, I don't like this job. I'll go do something else. And so then the company, is at a disadvantage because they can't keep productivity high and get the products to their customers and all that. So I think it's just like any other machine that companies employ. They have a purpose for it. And so when
Yeah.
you see it in a structured environment like a factory, it makes sense. Okay, if it's better than a wheeled robot, if it's better than collaborative robot that you can move around, there's other ways to move robots around other than walking like a human. Then okay, then it's going to be successful. If it's not, then we'll use other technologies and not humanoids. The
Yeah.
one factor that they keep coming back to, the companies that are developing humanoids, is that the world is built for the human shape. And so we already have factories built for people. So if we have something the size of a person that can navigate around like a person, we don't have to build a new factory. We don't have to retrofit. We don't have to do all this. Okay, maybe. Again, if you can handle the safety issues and you can make sure that the robot doesn't hurt anyone, it's a lot different than I can see that it's an arm. It doesn't look like a person. My expectations are, hey, I got to be careful around it. There's sensors on it to protect me. If I see these things walking around all day, I could forget this isn't a person. This is a
Yeah.
machine. And
Yeah.
what if the machine, gets a little out of control?
It's so interesting what you mentioned, and I've never thought about it, but it's so true. I mean, we are surrounded by human-centric designs. For example, I spent several years working in the automotive industry, and if you look the manufacturing floor, so the ergonomics, how I don't know, far above your head, certain things should be positioned so that you can really attach things to things. Do you need to go into your knees a lot? So what about your back? So it's really very much, it's a lot of sophistication and thoughts in order to keep a human worker healthy and well. And obviously, we are not going to completely redesign the manufacturing floor for machines. So we need to plug them in somehow. And I understand now that this humanoid factor is not just for the sake of, it's a mechanical friend, but it's just how the world is designed around us.
Right.
It's very interesting. So what type of industries are looking into employing those humanoids?
Right now, the industries are manufacturing industries like automotive.
Yeah.
They have a lot of these kinds of tasks that could be automated with humanoid robots working side by side with people, on the assembly line. The other big opportunity right now is logistics, warehouses and distribution centers. That's the other one. There's discussion, of course, about other retail applications, in restaurants and stores and other places where we interact with robots. And then, of course, ultimately, you could be looking at things in our daily life in homes or, assisted living facilities and nursing homes. But that is definitely further off. But right now, there are tests being done, pilot programs being run, apparently some successfully. Some of the companies are reporting orders. And the other thing is there's so much money being invested into the speed up the development of these products. So that'll really be interesting to see what that money means. Will all of these companies that are starting be successful? There's a race. China has, dozens of companies working on humanoids. And the concern is that they can produce them cheaper than anybody else in the world will be able to do. And so that they're going to dominate the market, maybe. But, this is going to be a really interesting next few years to see, is there something that really is so much better about humanoids than the other technologies that are available? So that's question one.
Yeah.
And number two, if there is, can we do it affordably? And can we make the ROI work? And is it going to be all from China, or are these companies that are in Europe and the US developing this technologies also going to be leaders? We'll see.
And obviously, China has quite a top-down policy on developing AI and robotic technology. So they want to lead, and so they put a lot of investments driven by the governments. So local governments in investing into companies, right? So obviously, Europe does not have the same level of sophistication around supporting those companies, right? What about the US? Is there some centralized effort going on, or is it just at the mercy of the venture capitalists and the private industry?
There's no centralized effort. Now,
Yeah.
having said that, the other thing that we don't talk about much, but that everybody is aware of, is that humanoid robots and other types of robots, drones, can be used by the military.
Yes, of course.
And so if this is going to be the battlefield of the future, you have to assume that everybody is working on that, right?
Yeah.
Drones are now a big part of military operations in the Ukraine. And
absolutely. 200 designs, and some of those designs happen to get alive in the garage. Yeah, so it's not just, some companies driving this, but some amateurs trying to redesign basic, simple drones for military purposes.
yeah. So what will happen with humanoids? Are we going to have humanoid soldiers? Our future war is going to be fought by whose robots are better than the other? I mean, I hope not, but this is what we have to be on alert for, right?
Absolutely. And I wonder, so we've just surpassed COVID. And I've never seen those machines before, but now sometimes when I am in a hotel, a robot, not quite humanoid, but maybe half size of a human, is bringing some toiletries, towels, or if you are in New York in some sushi restaurants, then quite often you see robots walking by with touch screens and obviously you order with the robot. And I don't know, are we tipping your robots now or what is going on there? So how do you see the impact of COVID on the industry?
Well, I think COVID jump-started some of those type of applications, but not just because the technology was ready, but because people didn't want to go and do those jobs and be around people all day. So, it was filling a void, a labor void. And I think they'll continue to develop, that you'll see more of those types of robots that are, wheeled around in restaurants and other retail environments. Yeah, I'm quite certain of that. Mobile kiosks in airports. I would expect to see more of that. And depending on the country, you may see a lot of them or you may see a few of them. And even within the US, there are places where they're more likely to be seen. And you mentioned hotels. A lot of hotels tell you now, like, we'll incentivize you not to have service each day in your room, right?
Yeah.
So they're facing real shortages. And if these technologies can do some of those tasks that they can't find people to do, then they're going to employ them.
Yeah. And I wonder, so if we look into the US and European private sector, so of course they are Amazons of this world and they have all robots they need for logistics and invest more and more. But if we talk startups and mid-sized companies, do we have a lot of unicorns? So those startups with valuation over $1 billion US dollars in humanoid robotics?
Well, the latest number that I saw on Figure, which is one of the leading players, and I don't know them, but last I saw, they had at least 675 million invested in them, maybe more. I don't know.
Wow.
And of course, Tesla is developing its Optimus robot, and they have unlimited amount of money. So, I mean, this is going to be like I said, a really interesting time to see what all that money does, and with all this quickening of AI development and these other technologies like we talked about, vision and motion, we'll just see what happens here and what happens.
And if people in my audience would like to see those robots on videos, what companies are putting great video tutorials or just pictures of those robots they're building on social, on YouTube?
Yeah,
So
I think a lot of them are. I mean, Figure certainly is. Sanctuary, I believe, is. Agility, Apptronic, Boston Dynamics, who they're great at videos.
yeah.
I think just about every major player has got videos that they're showing.
And I'm going to put some of those videos in the show notes to this very podcast. And now, if we look into the hurdles, so you mentioned battery. This is, of course, a huge issue with the technology. And then, how can you scale, adopt? Robots are really very, very heavy. What else needs to happen to facilitate robotics and
Well,
humanoid robotics?
Well, think about the maintenance. So not just the battery issues, but let's say you have one in your home. You going to repair it? Because who's going to take care of it? And maybe there are things that can be done remotely, right? Uh, there's a person who's in the loop, and the robot does something that's not supposed to do, and somebody can remotely correct it. But I mean, that's going to be an issue. How you handle that when it gets out of factories or even in factories. I mean, what experience do we have repairing humanoid robots? So I don't know. How do they integrate with other technologies? Interoperability. How do they, getting along with people is the most important issue, but how do they get along with other machines? Because
Yeah.
they're not going to be the only machines in the factory. So if a mobile base is in a warehouse and then there's a humanoid, are they going to communicate with each other so they don't crash into each other? A lot of things.
Yeah, and I really, I'm keeping wondering. So much efforts is getting invested into large language models and machine language, but I guess we must invest into the machine language so that the machines can communicate to other machines. Are you aware about some efforts there? Maybe research, not just applications.
Well, I know a lot of companies work on fleet management for the robots that they have. So I imagine people work this out or working it out on how
Yeah.
to handle this. And then, of course, what happens with all the data and how do you, you know, circulate that data to everybody who needs it, and what does the humanoid collect? And so there's a lot of things that are going to be involved with the widespread adoption of humanoids if that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, robots obviously, by definition, they are edge devices, right? Like our phones or like sensors in our garage or in our garden, and computation on the edge. It's simply difficult. Have you heard about some interesting practices or best practices? How companies are solving it?
I don't know. I'm not close enough to the technology to be able to answer that, Anastassia.
Yeah. And so the energy consumption of those robots, is it an issue? So besides the battery, I mean, just, data mining, any insights on this?
That's a good question, and I don't know that the companies themselves would be better to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So I'll put some information about this into the show notes. But for me, this is one of the major tasks. How to process this huge amount of data coming from the robot to the cloud or on premise, and then to improve the functionalities of this technology. There's one field which is kind of interesting because with robots. There's a lot of emotion coming from Hollywood or other movies and literature. And how do you see the importance of sci-fi in how humans perceive smart machines?
That's a really that's a really important question, and I don't know the answer to how all humans will, but I think what's really going to be important is how today's children are going to see
Yeah,
these advances. Right? Are they going to be comfortable with robots that they've seen portrayed maybe negatively in movies, but also now we have what's it called, the Wild Robot movie that I have not seen. That's a big hit in the U.S. that I think presents a nicer view of robots. So I'm really curious about that, what the next generations are going to see, and how they're going to interpret not only what they're seeing out of Hollywood or reading, but just as they interact more with these technologies, what they think. Is this good or bad? And I know I talk to a lot of young people who are very worried about military applications, and they're very worried about jobs, as every generation is. But they're also worried about this human connection, that, you know, this is a machine, it's not a person, and I don't know that I want to connect with it. I hear a lot of people talk that way. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
And I mean, this is a very good point. So we are kind of, delving into the realm of ethics. And obviously, don't do harm is very true for humans, but it might be very much true in our interactions with AI. And on my podcast, I sometimes introduce sci-fi books dealing with AI and robotics. So I discussed Clara and the Sun. So Clara is a humanoid robot, a social robot, and an artificial friend to children. And it's all in the dystopian future. Those children, they are manipulated genetically to be enhanced academically, and some of them get sick. And so the whole story, Clara and the relationship with her human friend, and how Clara actually feels, if we can say the robot feels, and what should happen to her. So I'm really using her and not it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a female form and female design. I think we will transfer some human notions and feelings to robots, and then of course I think more or less everyone watched Westworld.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
Well,
this dystopian park.
yeah. I mean, there are advances in robots that work with children. China has been at the forefront of this in working with uh, single, um, child homes. So there's
Yeah,
no siblings. So they've used robots to communicate and educate children. But we have robots now in the U.S. that are communicating with children. Smaller tabletop versions. Moxie is one that comes from a company I know, Embodied AI, I think it's called. But at any rate, the point is, there are the negative images, there's the positive images, there's the Hollywood images. What are we gonna think in the future? I mean, are we
yeah,
ready? Are we ready to have a relationship with these machines that is going to be a positive one? Or are we the ethical issue, now that they can, surf the internet, and they can, you can give it a command to make me something like Van Gogh, and I can't tell the difference. Is that good or bad? They're going to write screenplays. They're going to, do the paintings. They're going to do all the things that we can do at a level without the emotional connection to it. So will people look at it and say, yeah, that's great. It looks as good as anything that a person could do? Or are they going to look at it and say, I don't feel it.
yeah.
I don't feel that.
And what is the solution here? So I think so educating people about robots and current and maybe future applications. I think it should be part of any school's program, because we will live with those machines just due to demographical trends worldwide. So we are an aging planet if things don't reverse naturally.
Yeah.
So we will live with those machines.
Yeah,
How
you
to
made a good
go?
point. Yeah, it should be part of the school curriculum. In the U.S., there's a program called First Robotics that is really great. There's teams all over the world competing. The problem is that it's not part of the curriculum. It's extracurricular. And then there's other programs called VEX Robotics, again, usually extracurricular, I think. So how do we make that part of the curriculum so that students at a very early age get exposed, understand the positives as well as the things to be concerned about, so that they are the ones shaping the future of these technologies? I think that's going to be really critical.
Absolutely. I can share a story of my daughter. She was 5 years old. And because I was working at Qualcomm, I brought her with me in summer. So I spent 2 weeks there. And she was part of a robotic camp. And obviously, she was 5, and she came home the first day, and she said, "Mom, I wanted to do robots. I did not want to go to a boy camp."
Mm,
And that was, this little cultural element on how we introduce kids to robotics. So she
right.
did not enjoy it much due to this social connection on
Yeah.
campus. And we need to think really carefully how we start and how we design an experience. Ultimately, it's all about experiences. Do you know about other countries which are more progressive in introducing kids to robotics?
Yeah. It's hard for me to know what each country does. I do know this. When you go to a trade show in the United States, including ours, we have age limits on there.
Yeah.
Can't be below 12 years old. And you have to be accompanied by an adult if you're a certain age. When you go to Korea or you go to China, there are kids all ages swarming the robots. Now,
Wow.
that's an advantage and a disadvantage. The reason it's an advantage is you're exposing the kids to the technology at an early age. Reason it's a disadvantage, I've seen robots in booths in other countries that have almost decapitated children
Oh
because
no.
they're not safeguarding their booths. So, this is you want to do it, but you want to do it in a way that's safe for the kids. So, but I think it's great. There's so much interest at an early age in other countries, and to some extent in the U.S. But in the U.S., you're kind of kept away from the technology.
And maybe the ways to introduce robotic friends like cats, dogs, or imaginary animals first to the kids.
I
Maybe
think that's
this is the way. I don't
the
know.
way. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Really, we learned a lot. What is next for you in the next maybe a few weeks or months? What are you happy about?
Well, we have a lot from an association standpoint. We have this event, as you mentioned, coming up on humanoid robots, followed by the next 2 days, autonomous mobile robots. So those are the
Right.
mobile spaces. So those two events actually fit pretty well together. And so some of
Yeah.
the people who are going to one are going to both of them. So that worked out. Then after that, we have an event on artificial intelligence. So that'll
Wonderful.
in November in Atlanta. And then we're be getting ready for our next year's events, including our annual business forum, which is industry leaders coming together for networking and listening to great talks. And then ultimately, mid-May of next year, Automate 2025 in Detroit, which is the largest robotics and automation show in the United States.
Well, you have plenty of tasks on your hands,
Yeah,
and thank you so much, really, for your time. And good luck. And maybe we will reconnect in a year and see what advances we witnessed and where the industry is heading to.
that'd be excellent. Thank you very much for having me. It's been enjoyable.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank
Thank
you. And that was actually my AI snacks with Robbie, and Jeff Burnstein. And the book, Robbie, and the Secrets of Sleep, is currently available on Amazon. Please look into the Amazon site. There is an Audible book and there is an ebook as well, equipped with the living appendix or the science behind section. And I'm very curious for your feedback. Please write what type of robots are you curious about? What technologies are you expecting and liking? And I see you next week. Thank you.